The lesson I chose to do for my final project was I Have a Dream, focusing on Dr. Martin Luther King. As far as the ISTE-NET standards for students, my lesson incorporates a lot of technology with a digital storybook and a song. So this will allow students to become empowered learners, digital citizens, have knowledge construction, be innovative designers, which is what they're going to do when they create their own I Have a Dream speech and their own picket signs. This will help them collaborate and think globally because we're talking about all of America and the contributions that Dr. King made. And it will help them be creative communicators because of all the different mediums that I'm allowing them to use. Focusing on universal design for learning, I began with my engagement. I decided to present material in a creative way. I thought that based on our students that you gave us, I saw that many of them were creative. They like to sing and compose music, for example, Sarah, or they like athletics, or some of them aren't as into language arts as they are to math and science. With this, I decided that, excuse me, with this, I decided that I wanted them to be able to present their material in a creative way. I'm using songs, digital storybooks, as I previously mentioned, and I'm allowing a lot of computer use. There is a section where I want them to have access to a Venn diagram, and for those that have fine motor disabilities or trouble writing or putting their thoughts down on paper, I gave them the option of doing this electronically. Now, for representation, I wanted to provide a significant amount of background knowledge, but I also wanted to focus on their prior knowledge. I began my lesson by asking them, does anybody know who Martin Luther King Jr. is? I placed my lesson during the week of Martin Luther King Day. We always have off school on that day if you're in high school, grade school, etc. And I wanted to see if students knew why we had that day off. Not just, oh, we don't have to go to school, but really why and why it was important. I wanted to kind of get the main thing Dr. King did out of the way. Everybody knows of the I Have a Dream speech. So I really wanted that to be my focus topic, but I also wanted to key in on smaller things that Dr. King did to contribute to society and civil rights. As far as representation, I also allow collaboration and exploration. I think that if students are free to explore, then they'll be a lot more intrigued on the lesson. I want to represent my information visually as well as orally because several of my students learn better when they're able to see what's happening. Because of this, I use videos, posters, just a lot of visuals and charts. For one of my students who is an English language learner, I thought that it would be a good idea to compare Dr. King to a civil rights activist who is Hispanic, maybe intrigue her interest a little more. For expression, I need to monitor all of my students' progress. I know that they have different levels of learning and different levels of comprehension. Because of this, I want to make a plan and I want to allow as many tools for assistive technology as possible. Now, whether this is just the computer or a GoTalk for expressive communication or something as simple as a pencil grip to help them color their signs or write their speeches. Focusing on my set standards, I have an individual chart made for each of my students. Some are gifted, some are a little behind when it comes to their cognitive skills. Several have very good home lives, several don't have as good home lives, and several have different tasks and tools they'll need to accomplish. And I think that my lesson focuses on all of those individual students' needs. When I go to my lesson plan, I titled it, I Have a Dream, because like I said, this is Dr. King's most famous speech, what he's really well known for. My objectives that I'll be doing are focusing on vocabulary, focusing on comparing and contrasting today's society back into society in 1963. And I will also want all of my students to briefly describe at least 3 contributions Dr. King made. Like I said, the majority of people know that I Have a Dream speech, but they don't know a lot of the other contributions Dr. King made. And finally, I want my student to demonstrate their writing abilities by creating their own I Have a Dream speech about something that they're passionate about. Now, I described in my lesson plan that this could be something very wide scale, such as war or how women are treated today in society or equality, or it could be something that they feel is important as an elementary school student, such as longer recess time, better lunch options, dress code, stuff like that. Vocabulary I wanted my students to focus on included civil rights, discrimination, prejudice, segregation, protest, boycott, activist, and dream. Now, I know that dream is kind of a common word, but I put that in there because we're not talking about dreams as if the ones that we have when we're asleep. We're talking about a thought or idea for the future, positivity, just like Dr. King. For assessment, I didn't want to do a lot of grading because I felt that students each have their own individual way of expression. I am going to do a lot of oral testing by question and answer, just having students tell me what they think, their opinions, their thoughts, what they know. My learning environment is a third grade classroom, and the students will be looking at a whiteboard, smartboard, and the dot cam that I'll have set up. So to begin my lesson, what I was going to do was just key into that background knowledge and prior knowledge to ask what they know about Dr. King. Hopefully I would want them to know that the holiday we celebrated was for Dr. King and for his accomplishments. I would explain that on November 3rd, 1983, Ronald Reagan signed a bill stating that this would be a holiday in honor of Dr. King. I would then lead into a digital story called I Am Martin Luther King Jr. for the students to learn more. Now, this really helps the students who have trouble with reading comprehension or who have dyslexia, such as Danielle. And it's about a 17-minute video of a storybook called I Am Martin Luther King Jr. After they read or listen to the story, I would want my students to split up into two halves of the room for their vocabulary lesson. One half of the room would be the I think I know this, and the other half of the room would be I don't quite know this yet. I would then state a vocabulary word such as civil rights. If you think you know it, you would go to this side of the room, and if you don't think you know it yet, you would go to this side of the room. For the students who think they know it, I would call on one of them, ask them to state what they think it means, and then I would give the correct definition. Following that, I would ask students to return to their seats and ask if anyone knows what speech Dr. King is famous for. In hopes that somebody would say, I have a dream, I would want to play the song I Have a Dream on YouTube. This is a catchy song that would just kind of get thoughts flowing for students and help them remember that that's what he's famous for, what his dream was, etc. I would then use a chicken egg. This is an activity that I saw online. I would get a brown chicken egg and a white chicken egg, and I would crack both of them to show that everybody's the same on the inside. And that's really what Dr. King was fighting for and trying to explain, that we're all alike even though we look different on the outside. Following that demonstration, I would pass out copies of the Venn diagram template. I would want students to say what they think is the same and what they think is different from today's society and the society in 1963. Following that, I would want students to do their I Have a Dream speech, which I mentioned previously, whether it's something big, such as war, or something small, such as I want to wear my baseball cap in school. I would want them to just do 1 to 2 paragraphs, and then I would have pre-made picket signs that I would want them to decorate and really get their creativity flowing to hold up for when I ask them to talk about what they're passionate about. Lastly, I would just ask the students to stand up. Anybody volunteer, I wouldn't make anybody do anything, but I would want to hear what they have a dream about, what they want as a change for the future. And I would ask them to show the signs. As their exit slip for recess, I would want them to tell me 3 things that Dr. King did for society. Ideally, I would want them to say 3 different things than the I Have a Dream speech, but if they say that I Have a Dream speech and then 2 other things, that's acceptable too. That would be their exit slip, and then I would know, even though I didn't do assessments, I would still know that my students did understand the information. The day after this lesson, I would want to ease into Rosa Parks because she and Dr. King do go along together, and I think if they do understand Dr. King, they'll understand what Rosa Parks was fighting for as well. Before I started my Rosa Parks lesson, I think I would kind of recap on what we talked about with Dr. King. And I would send a flyer home to parents telling them that this can be a touchy subject for some students, and it would go a lot more smoothly for them, their children, and me as well, if they talk to them about it at home first. Like I said, this can be a heavy subject for any student of any age, but especially like third graders. So I would want them to discuss it at the dinner table. You can check out children's books about it. There are games on my website for Dr. King. There's videos, storybooks, songs, just anything to kind of get the children introduced to it so it doesn't all come to them at once. And that is my lesson, but I also have a QR code that I would want them to do as another part of a vocabulary lesson. They would scan the code, and there's a code for each individual vocabulary word. Once they scan the code, it will take them to a video to further explain what each vocabulary word means in a 2 to 3 minute video that's more fun for kids to learn about. And that's my lesson about Dr. King.